First of all, let me welcome everyone to our final dinner of the fourth season of the Village Square. To my right, many of you may recognize County Commissioner Chip LaMarca, a great county commissioner and a gentleman I've had the opportunity to work with for the last 4+ years on the Village Square, but a gentleman that I've known for many years and a great public servant here in Broward County. So Chip, thanks for joining me again up here. This is fantastic.
Make sure I was on your right this time.
Chip always wants to stand on my right. I haven't figured that out yet, but...
But I'm on your left.
Let me take a second. We're delighted that all of you could join us this evening. And if you look around, you'll see we have over 100 people that came for this dinner. And first of all, how about a round of applause for Funky Buddha? How about this dinner? They got a great job. They do such a great job with their food and their beverages, especially the adult beverages they have back there. But it's great to see so many faces that have been with us and so many new faces. And if you haven't had a chance, we ask that, as you're sitting at these tables, part of this is to get to know new people, get to talk to people, get to mingle, talk about the issues you're going to talk about tonight up here. So make sure you introduce yourself to the person on your right, the person on your left, the person across the table, and hopefully from tonight's meeting, you'll have a chance to do something together in the future. For those of you that have been here before, this is the one time we do ask you to pull out your cell phones. We tell you that if you are on social media, we want you to post, tweet, share the information about the Village Square. The hashtags are at Broward College, you see there, or hashtag Broward College, hashtag Village Square. And we encourage you to spread the word. And I think also you can go at Twitter, it's at Village Square FL? Yes. FL, good.
And at Michael Udine, you can
well, everybody tags at Michael Udine, right? But so we ask you that, pull the phones out, let people know where you are, who you're here with, and what we're talking about to help us build community. For those of you that are new to the Village Square, we provide a safe, comfortable forum for civic engagement on matters of local, state, and national importance. At the Village Square, you're going to hear viewpoints from both sides, those that you may agree with, those that you may disagree with. But it's important for people to see that individuals with opposing views or different political backgrounds can come together and have an elevated conversation about a topic. So tonight we're going to have that elevated conversation. So we do this through our Dinner at the Square program and our Takeout Tuesdays program. The event tonight is what we call Dinner at the Square. This is our signature Village Square event. As I mentioned, this is our fourth season of doing this. The debate will be spirited but fact-based, and we'll have a civil dialogue as well as dinner with that civil dialogue. Our Takeout Tuesday series are free and open to the public as we want to make Village Square accessible to all. Takeout Tuesdays are generally done down at Broward College. Bring something to eat, bring something to drink, but come for a great discussion, and again, in a safe, comfortable forum. Hosting these events could not be possible without the leadership and vision of the gentleman that I think both Chip and I recognize will be a tremendous loss to our community in the next couple weeks as he finishes up. But President David Armstrong and Broward College are the reason we have the Village Square. They are the ones that brought this. They're the ones that have spearheaded it. How about a round of applause for David Armstrong and his team at Broward College. And we'll do an introduction in a second as to where this great team is going. But before we begin, a night like tonight could not have been made possible without the generous support of our partners and our Village Square members. Let me run through these briefly. Our event partners, we have Moms Demand Action Florida with us tonight. We appreciate them being here. And let me tell you something, growing up in a house with all the kids we had, when my mom demanded action, we took action. I'm just going to say that. So that's a great name for an organization. It's something that's very, very important. And then secondly, we have the South Florida Regional Chapter of mobilizing the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas alumni. So they're also with us tonight, so thank you. You'll also notice we have a handful of students here tonight. We would like to thank the Children's Services Council, who is a year-long partner here in Village Square and helps support purchasing tickets for high school students to attend our program throughout the season. So thank you to the Children's Services Council for the fabulous job they do supporting our youth. And Cindy, thank you very much. Cindy's here tonight from Children's Services. Thank you. We appreciate They get the whole group. We also want to thank Greenberg Traurig. You know, there are law firms that do very well. Firms grow, they develop, they move from city to city. Greenberg Traurig started out as a 2-lawyer firm in Miami. They are now a national law firm with well over 1,000 lawyers, attorneys, partners, all associates practicing, but they never forgot about giving back. And tonight I want to especially thank Greenberg Traurig, Jeffrey Hirsch, who just stepped up, gave 15 tickets so we could get some of the other students here tonight. And that is an awesome legacy for a law firm, knowing that no matter how big you get, you don't forget about building community in our backyard. So Jeff, thank you very much. I also want to thank our Village Square members that are with us tonight. You'll see many of them wearing the member button. Membership's only $68 for the year, and it supports the mission and programming of Village Square. Also, for those of you that are members, we have a little pre-dinner cocktail reception with our speakers and have a chance to catch up with them before we get to the main event. So if you're interested in becoming a member, you may refer to the information in your program, or you can get it right at the front door as you head out tonight. A couple other thank yous. The Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, incredible partner, really been wonderful to work with. I know David Armstrong served as the head of the Alliance at one time, but they have been an amazing community partner. You served 2 years at the helm, but they just stay involved and do a great job. Also want to thank 10 Days of Connection and the Broward League of Cities. So how about thanking all those sponsors, members, and partners? And with that, let me turn it over to Chip LaMarca, County Commissioner LaMarca, who's going to run through the ground rules of tonight's. And as you would suspect, at a civil and spirited debate, there are some ground rules. So, Chip?
Thank you, Jack. First, before I go through the ground rules, I want to say that term limits are wonderful in a lot of places, and they're great for a lot of people. And I'm a fan, but we lost a lot of leadership in the city of Fort Lauderdale when Mayor Seiler was term limited out. I think he probably would have done it a little bit longer, but he did a great job, and we had a real true partner from the county. I know where you live. I have to serve you. I'm your county commissioner. I hope to be your state rep, so there's no trouble in finding you, but it was great to work with you for the 8 years that we were able to. So tonight, for our third and final dinner at the Square, we delved into another heated topic. Does your voice count? We wanted to make a few announcements and tell you about the ground rules. Tonight's topic does not necessarily have the pro-con view like many of our other topics. Instead, we're shedding a light on how different voices throughout this county in our own backyard are being heard or not heard. This is not a conversation on gun rights or safety in schools, but instead how young voices have always led the charge in our country, and if their voices really count. To keep the conversation civil and informative, I'd like to caution you against what we call team clapping. When you clap for your side says something you agree with, maybe give a little groan when you disagree. We'd like to do neither of those. Tonight, we'd like to challenge you to work hard and listen to both sides of the story. Just in case you need a reminder, we have our civility bell, which is in the hands of Kelly Alvarez Vitale, the president of Strategic. Oh, she's working the PowerPoint. Does anybody have the bell? We'll cling a glass. Listen, you'll know it if you did the wrong thing. You're going to hear a lot of bells. Exactly. We've asked Kelly, or Adriana in this case, to be particularly sensitive to either side of the aisle and ring the bell if she hears demonizing. And you heard the ring. A portion of the evening tonight will be Q&A, and there's a podium and mic in the back of the room if you would like to ask a question. Now, please be conscious of your time when asking a question, and please stay on topic. Most importantly, please ask a question. Don't give a statement. So I do want to recognize, and Jack alluded to this before, since this is our final Village Square of the season, both Jack and I would like to take a minute to recognize President Armstrong for his unwavering commitment to both Broward College and our community. During his tenure, he's demonstrated absolute dedication to providing students with high-quality, easily accessible, affordable education, and has also served as a pioneer in partnership and engagement with the business community. But what's really important here is when I talk about President Armstrong, and I'll continue to be having the same conversation about my friend Greg, we don't talk about just education. Broward College is not just a place where you go get a 2-year or a 4-year degree or a certificate. Broward College is the place, and David Armstrong was the person that tuned everyone in the business community to this, is the place where we have and we will continue to get our high-level, high-skilled, hopefully high-paying talent for all of the great jobs you have in Broward County. You know, you can't grow an economy without willing participants. Some people call them a labor or workforce. I call them great talent, and David Armstrong in his time at Broward College brought the two together with the business community, education community, and actually filling those needs. And on June 30th, that's right around the corner.
He knows.
I don't think you need to be. President Armstrong will transition to be President Emeritus of Broward College. Now, you don't look nearly old enough to be President Emeritus, but we'll give you that. His role will be to assist the board and the college for a period of 12 months, using his contacts, wealth of knowledge, and skills to help the Broward College Foundation raise funds, help the college obtain grants, and continue to generate connections between education, business, and entrepreneurship. President Armstrong, I think you might be doing a little bit of that in Tallahassee for a couple of months, at least this coming year. On behalf of the Village Square and the community, I want to thank you for your dedication and service, and Jack and I are very proud to have worked with you. I would normally raise a glass, but my wife says that doesn't go with being in politics. But we have somebody else we'd like to recognize.
So I will take a second that as President Armstrong moves on, it is my pleasure to officially introduce to you the 7th president of Broward College, Mr. Gregory Adam Hale. He will
soon to be a resident in your neighborhood, I hope.
He will officially take office on July 1st. Mr. Hale currently serves as the Chief Legal Counsel and Vice President for Public Policy and Government Affairs for the college, a position which he has held since 2011. He is a career public servant. He is a career community leader, and he's a very accomplished educator. He's passionate about education and has championed our community and higher education interests. He is married to just a lovely wife and the father of 2 girls. The girls aren't here with us tonight. You got someone watching them, I hope. All right. But I just want to take a second to welcome you, because you have been such a stalwart champion all along, and I know David thinks of you as part of that great team that now you transition to leadership. And it's such a great reflection of both of you that you were able to bring along the next leader of Broward College. And the next leader of Broward College is totally ready to just assume the mantle and do a fabulous job here in Broward County. So, Greg, thank you.
So before I introduce our panel, I like to do the one thing that really gets Kelly nervous and go off script for a half second. You know, I wouldn't have admitted to it while it was going on, but I have to tell you that when you have politics in your blood, and it's not a one side or the other, but just the process of politics and elections or picking someone or evaluating somebody, I can tell you now that I have never made more heartfelt phone calls, conversations, or talked about a person in a more positive way than I did Greg Hale. I do a lot better when I'm talking about other people, and Greg, you were an easy sell. So lastly, I have the pleasure of welcoming our guest panelists and moderator for this evening. So please help me in welcoming our panelists. We have the lovely, talented, absolutely amazing, especially because I'm sitting before the professional lobbyist next week to do my interview. No, but a real friend to Broward County, and quite honestly, somebody who gets more done in Tallahassee than you would ever know, Yolanda Cash-Jackson with the Becker Polikoff firm. We have Mei Ling Ho-Sheng with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I did have to do a little prep on that name, and we also have Megan Hobson with the Moms Demand Action and Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. And our moderator this evening is somebody that I've been blessed to work with. Before I get him up here, I don't want to talk too much about him, but I want to thank not only his staff, but Senator Rich's staff and other members of the county that have come and stayed involved in this process, no matter what the topic is or if their boss is here or not. So our moderator again is Commissioner Michael Udine, represents District 3 in Broward County, and I am personally lucky to have spent the last, it's been about a year and a half Time flies when you're having fun, at least with one or two members. He's been a fantastic county commissioner. He has your best wishes at heart. He's been great on business issues and running the county, but most importantly, he really stepped into his stride when part of our community, when something happened in part of our community, but the entire community needed to be brought together and needed a true leader. Commissioner Udine did that. So we're fortunate to have them all here. I appreciate you. He's breathing down my neck because I think he wants the microphone. Now on to our programming. We begin our debate. We will watch a short video. And again, I want to thank you for your support. And I want to also thank Mayor Seiler, who will always be the mayor to me, and for being my partner in this, my co-chair in this. And we both decided to do it a little bit longer, so you still got us.
Thank you. You doing a video?
We couldn't trust the politicians on this, that we needed to do it because they weren't doing it.
So we're here together and we keep waiting for them to do something about it.
We can't rely on the adults, that this has to be a student movement.
So I guess we'll come together because we have to for the entire nation. We are the revolution and we can do this together.
Students are the heart and soul of this movement. And I've told them that because I've met with a lot of them.
Never again! Never again! Never again!
Young people have literally been the forefront of every movement. If you look at the anti-war movements, if you look at the civil rights movement, these were pioneered by young people because young people are the people that are looking forward.
Good evening, everybody. I am Michael Udine, your County Commissioner for District 3. Thank you, Chip, for that fine introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jack. It's always excellent to work with great giving public servants, and these two are two of the best at what they do, and it's my pleasure to serve with them and to serve the community. So thank you for everything that you have both done and continue to do and will continue to do for Broward County. It is my honor to be here. I know I have people from my office. Sarah's here. Stephanie's here from Nan Rich's office. We try to work as a collegial body on the county commission. Stephanie is wearing her Stoneman Douglas shirt because she is an MSD alumni. And that brings us to our subject for this evening. And our subject for this evening is the response after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School tragedy. And following on something that Chip said, when our young people and we have a lot of incubators, we have a lot of technology companies, we have a lot of companies that really specialize in bringing businesses down to this area. The Fort Lauderdale Alliance, Enterprise Florida, whatever it is. But something that Mayor Beam first said at one of our workshops, State of the County breakfasts, all the advertising and all the dollars that we're spending to convince companies all over the world to come here was really just eclipsed by the students, because the companies that saw these students and saw what they can do and saw how they can put together marketing and promotion and organizations in such a quick time, those students and these students are and those students back there, because we have plenty of students here, they're the future of what's going to drive business and what's going to drive the South Florida region. And people would stop me all over the country after this incident, and when they would talk about Parkland, and people inside of Parkland were really nervous after this. You know, what's everybody going to think about Parkland? We're going to be like Columbine or Newton. No one's going to want to be in Parkland. But something strange happened afterwards. Everybody wanted to be in Parkland. Everybody wanted to be part of Parkland, and everyone wanted to be MSD strong. So, and most of that goes to the students and the response that they've made from this event. So I'm going to let our panel introduce themselves and say a few words about each other and themselves. I'll start right here.
Good evening. My name is Megan Hobson. I am here because I'm a survivor of gun violence, as well as a community activist and a gun safety activist.
My name is Mei Ling Hoshing. I am now a senior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And I'm also a survivor. I was on the second floor of the freshman building that day. And now an advocate and activist for gun reform.
I'm Yolanda Cash Jackson, and I am a lobbyist. I lobby the legislature on many issues, including education.
Excellent. So what we saw in the video and what we're here to discuss is the role that the youth play in these type of movements. So how do you guys feel that the youth of our country are handling this in comparison to how they handled civil rights movements and any type of movement that has gotten the whole country to rally around it? Because that's what we're seeing with the Never Again movement. We're seeing really a rallying cry for the entire country to follow these students. So I'll start with Yolanda and we can work our way back.
Well, this is a little intimidating with these young ladies up here. They're all prepared with their notes. But for the person that probably was a part of the civil rights movement, I guess I would say that it's not unusual to have young people to be a part of not just civil rights, but unrest. So for those of us who are wearing platform shoes for the second time, we remember the Black Panther movement. We remember the sit-ins, the streaking, and all of that. Those were all young people who had very little to lose in regards to social action, and so they were willing to take a risk. And I think this is what you've seen here. Particularly, I think what's really interesting in this situation is you had young people who had a voice, so that when children were killed before, they were young. They couldn't talk. They couldn't really communicate their grief. And we didn't have technology back then. But if you go to the Little Rock Nine, those were young people. If you go to Woodstock, those were young people. So this is not unusual. And I'll tell the young people what Woodstock is after.
It was a big concert.
It was a big concert.
Mei Ling?
So pretty much, when it comes to these movements, you see that youth always led them. We tend to forget that Martin Luther King was in his 30s when he got shot. And that says a lot because he was a young man and he accomplished so much. I'm glad that you said risk, because when you think about the movements in the civil rights movement, the risks were arrest and death. When it was fighting for your rights, fighting for freedom, fighting for equality. Nowadays, especially with my classmates, these die-ins and sit-ins and protesting, it's more of an applause and the police are with us. So it's just how just how we've evolved. But at the end of the day, there's comparison, but the civil rights movement was something so powerful because the risk was different.
Interesting. Megan?
I believe that the young people have shown time after time that they won't take no for an answer. I believe that what's going on is this is a generation that they keep on saying they're a generation of change, and indeed I believe that they are, just because this is a generation that grew up hearing that you can do and be whatever you want to be. So I don't think that they're allowing people to silence them, and I think that it's just, we read about civil rights in our history books. For the most part, if we had a chance to read other books, then of course you learned about it in other ways as well. But I believe that for the most part, we're living in the times that we read about. So I remember being in school and reading and saying, well, our ancestors, they were tripping, and if it was me, I would, and now is the time, and it is us, and what are we doing? And I think that movements like Never Again, and even when it's not a movement, because when I started activism, it wasn't a movement. It was me standing up for lives that were affected in my community and lives like my own. So I don't think it has to be a big movement. I think you just have to make that first step, and that is the movement in itself. So we're actually just doing what we know how to do, survive, and this is how we do it.
Excellent. I'm going to go right off script. They told me I can jump around as I heard things. So, you guys all brought up the idea of sit-ins and different type of protests. So we saw this week, or 2 weeks ago, the die-in at Publix. So let's talk about that for a second, because I think that most people would think that Publix is a pretty good corporate steward. I mean, I know they hire a lot of my kids worked there while they were at Douglas. They hire a lot of Douglas students there. What should the response be of some of these large public corporations? I mean, we know why they did the sit-in. The sit-in was organized in responses to political contributions to one candidate over another. Let's talk about that. I think that's an important subject to bring up. And I'm going to start with Megan.
I think with the sit-ins,
No, the die-in at Publix.
The die-in at Publix, I think that for the most part, it's all the major corporations need to really think about the fact that we're putting the money in their pockets as a company. So we need to kind of hit them in their pocket, and that's the only way that they might actually change. That's what Dick's did. That's what a lot of these other corporations have been doing. They're getting called out. They're getting hit in their pocket by people saying boycott them, you know, and that's why they're actually making a change. I don't think it should take for us to say that we're boycotting them for them to do it, but you know, you have to put your money where your mouth is. So for the most part, that's what these die-ins are, and they have them. Parkland wasn't the first time that, there have been die-ins, and most times, but I would say this was one of the first times that I've seen. I feel like some of the corporations are feeling a little bit of anxiety and fear, whether like, am I next? Everybody's walking on eggshells, like, I don't know if, because believe it or not, I think that the money that everybody is talking about that is involved in these mass corporations, I think that it is questionable. But the moment you question, no one wants to answer it. But when you're doing things like the die-in, you're bringing awareness, but you're also taking a stand and saying, do you see us now? You have to address us now. So, I mean, there's, of course, people that walked past them like they weren't even there. But for the most part, we saw it and we knew that, well, that's big, to the point where there's a die-in coming up soon, and I know people are saying, well, what are we doing for this one? It's like we're making activism cool in a way.
Okay. Mei Ling?
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. With the die-in, like I was actually leaving my house to go to Publix when I saw it on the news. I'm very proud of my classmates.
Just say it.
I don't know how they pulled it off with the support, but I will say this: I'm extremely proud of them, and when it comes to, sorry, I lost my train of thought for some reason.
Well, let me go to Yolanda. I'm going to come back to you because I'm going to
please.
follow up on something that you said in there with regard to your classmates. So Yolanda, what do you think about, specifically like the Publix die-in? What are we doing as far as how should we hold our corporations and our businesses up? Are we going to analyze every contribution versus every voting record? It opens it up to a very interesting dialogue.
Well, as a government relations
Right.
professional, I am so glad that Publix is not my client.
Right.
What do you do? How do you fix that?
Right.
And that's what we are. We're fixers. So I think that every corporation needs to be sensitive to the fact that by 2050, if you look to your left, you look to your right, the person next to you is going to be some person from somewhere else, a person of color. We live in a very diverse community with diverse thoughts, and Broward County is exactly like that. Corporations have to be aware. They have to work fast. If you look at what Starbucks did and the money that they spent to close their stores to fix it, and I don't know if they really did fix it, but that's all you can do. Some of the stuff you can't anticipate when you have young people that really don't care about what the rules are. They just do it. And it makes our job very, very hard. Very, very hard. I wouldn't know what to tell Publix as my client except to say you apologize and return the check.
Right. Okay. So about 2 weeks after week or two after the shooting, 2 weeks, Dwayne Wade came to Stoneman Douglas High School. And I had the privilege of being there. I wasn't in the selfies with any of them. I was kind of behind the scenes just watching a little of it. And he first went to the cafeteria. You were probably there when he went to the cafeteria. Everybody went crazy. There were selfies all over the place. Then he went into a little back room with some of the Never Again organizers. I don't know if you were in that little ante room in the back behind the principal's office.
I was not with the Never Again kids. It had to take my mentor to call me out of class for me to meet him, because if she wouldn't, I wouldn't have seen him at all.
Okay, so that brings me to an interesting conversation that I heard Dwayne Wade have with the Never Again kids. And what Dwayne Wade said, Never Again kids were trying to get him involved in the movement that the March for Our Lives and everything. And Dwayne Wade said to them, what are you doing to bring the communities of Chicago and the minority communities and people where gun violence occurs on a regular basis into this movement? So I think that's a transition into how do we do that, and are they doing that, and how do we feel that that needs to be handled? Because Dwayne Wade was extremely specific on that. And then I think he came up and he donated a couple $100,000, and I remember, because I was there, and he said that was so that students from Chicago and students from the different minority communities could be given scholarships to go to the March for Our Lives event. So I'd be interested in hearing your take on that, Mei Ling, as a student, and then we'll go from there.
I will first say that, keep in mind when I say this, that I'm very proud of the kids that are forefront of these movements. They are strong and they are bold. But I will say, when it comes to national television, they are very inclusive. I'm very proud of them that they're going to Chicago, that they're going to Boston, Memphis, etc. But I don't believe you could fix a problem without being working ground up, which is your own community. It's harder for them to get an interview locally than, picking one that you have to take a flight. If it's not a flight, they're not going. And when we have gun violence in our own backyard, and that's painful. You hear our students talk about we understand that the black students are not being heard at Marjory Stoneman Douglas, but you guys haven't seen my face or don't know my name, and that's because they've taken off and not included me or asked me, hey, Mei Ling, even though the girl that you saw up there, she sits right next to me in class. And that says something. So it hasn't been an invitation to come sit at the table when the black students at Marjory Stoneman Douglas and the minorities are 40% at Marjory Stoneman Douglas, but you do not see that on national television. We have something to say. We've tried to talk about Black Lives Matter, yet it was a controversial topic prior to the shooting when their lives are at risk, when black lives have always been at risk.
And yeah, as somebody from the community, I have someone who just graduated. I have a senior that just graduated, and I have my niece as a junior there. I believe what she's saying is extremely factual. And as a matter of fact, I'm positive what she's saying is extremely factual, because I hear it from many of the students that are not the upper echelon advocates for this movement, that there is some level of where is the inclusion of all different students, not just minority students, but other students that have a different story to say, other students that were in a location that was put them right there where it seems as if a cottage industry has taken off of advocates that the media has focused on to the detriment of others. So that I believe that what you're saying and what you're feeling is factual, and it's something that I'm hearing in the community as well from a lot of people who are sometimes afraid to say it publicly because they don't want to be scorned by, not towing the exact line that they're hearing from the national media. So I'll go to Yolanda. What do you think we can do to keep this movement inclusive of? How do we do that? How do we break through this media stereotyping is probably not the right word, but packaging, how they're packaging this story, if that's the word.
I think that you have to realize that if you are a person of color, you probably have been impacted by gun violence. I have. My cousin at 19 years old was gunned down in Liberty City. To this day, 3 years later, his mother has heard nothing about who killed him. You wouldn't know that. I work at Becker Polycop. But it impacts everybody. And it's sad and it hurts families. And so I think to keep it going, we have to have those stories told. For me as a community activist, because I am an activist on that issue because it affected my family. I had hoped that the mothers of murdered kids would come up to Parkland and stand side by side of those parents in Parkland who were also hurting because their kids were murdered. A murdered kid is a murdered kid. And until we do that, we're not going to be able to take out the sensationalism of separatism.
Right.
And it's a hard thing because you don't want to be called out.
Right.
You don't want to seem insensitive to, as a parent, you don't want to seem insensitive. But the reality is that these children that are in these other communities are just as traumatized when they have to go home and they have other siblings, and they have and I'll just, I represent colleges in one of the HBCUs, and one of the students told me that he couldn't wait to get his mother and his sisters and brothers out of the pork and beans because they all have a place to go when the shots go off, if you can imagine. They have a place in the house to go to duck the bullets. That shouldn't be for any child to have to experience that.
Megan, what do you think about that? And then I'm going to add something personal into what you said, but I want to get Megan's thoughts.
I think that I like the fact that you brought up Liberty Square because that's what I was going to talk about. And I like how you said something about Dwayne Wade because we're saying, what can we do? But let's just state the obvious. Dwayne Wade didn't go to Liberty Square.
Right.
And that was 2 weeks after. The kids, I can speak on this because I was one of the ones trying to get buses from Liberty Square to the March for Our Lives in Miami Beach. Why are we having something, it's one thing to have something and say that you're doing it for the survivors or for the ones who are affected daily, and it's another thing to make sure that you're including them. You can't speak on them and make ways and do things for them, and you don't even know what they need in terms of assistance. I feel like it's nice to know that Dwayne Wade donated money to Parkland. It's nice to know a lot of people donated to the Never Again movement, but
where
we
are
don't
they,
have
where
to
are
go
they
to
with
Chicago.
other, right?
Yeah, we don't have to go to Chicago when we have Miami Gardens, Alapata, Low Havana, Brown Subs. We have other places that are hubs that definitely need to get, taken care of. It used to be back in the day, like even in Liberty Square, before in Liberty City, there used to be people who would have Easter egg hunts, and it was all for the youth because when you open these Easter eggs, they have money in them.
Right.
And it sounds crazy, but everybody wants to hit a lick Easter time because it's just like, it would help even the parents. And I think that no one's doing that anymore. Like even when they go to Liberty Square, it's just like, you go there, but you just go there. It's not a walk in the park. You're doing this like if it's a stroll by in the neighborhood or something. But at the end of the day, even the people here aren't safe, and they're from here. And a lot of times they feel like they don't have somewhere to go. I think it is a good thing for Dwayne Wade and for a lot of people to be questioning it. But at the same time, we can't have the conversation if we're not going to give voice to both sides. I, for one, can say that because my story was never even on the news. On the news, if you go back, you can never see that I was shot that night. There was no press conference, no nothing about it. So I know that there's a lot of stories like mine in a lot of the areas. Even in the area that I got shot, there's still shootings going on. So I know that there's a lot more that can be done, but we're staying surface. There's layers to it, and people don't want to pull up, like they don't want to pull back the layers. And the truth is, bullets can't fix bullet holes. Like Band-Aids can't fix bullet holes. So I think that there's a lot to be done, but we have to, how do we do it? We have to do it. Be about it and actually do it. Here, locally.
I agree. I want to follow on to something that Mei Ling kind of said that hit home to me. Because, to some people in Northwest Broward, and I say Parkland only because it was in Parkland, but it's Northwest Broward. It's Coral Springs too, it's area. it seems to be that there's a lot of gratuitousness to a lot of what's going on, and is some of what we're seeing real. And I know this is sponsored by Broward College, so this lets me bring something up that's in that field. So we all saw on the news that David Hogg didn't get into the colleges that he was applying to. And I'm only using his name because he tweeted it all about it, so I guess it's very public. So at that time, New Mexico State University Honors College tweeted out that, okay, any of the top Never Again kids, if you want to come to our honors college, we'll get scholarships for you, and come on in, you could come in. So I tweeted back to them, because I use Twitter, @MichaelUdean if you're tagging anybody here. And I said, that's all well and good, but what about all the students from all over Broward County? What about the students that really need it? Because a lot of the students in Northwest Broward did not need it. Yes, some did, I get it, I know, some did. Some people were mad at me when I tweeted that, but I did it. And then, so we went into a little Twitter thing back and forth on that. And then about 2 days after that, the ACT Corporation sent something out, and they said, we want to give every student at Stoneman Douglas from 9th grade to 12th grade free ACTs for their whole high school career, which is a nice thing. I think it's a nice thing. But really, a lot of them didn't need it. What about the students that really need it? And what they said is, because they tweeted back to me, that we do have a program for people who are really financially needed. But I'm not talking about that. I know that the people that really financially need it get the program. But what about those people that are right on the borderline? So, it was just something that seemed to be very gratuitous. It was a nice thing. I know companies want to do things, but why aren't we thinking about the entire community when it comes to this? 2 days later, my American Express card had 2 credits from the ACT that my daughter took. So now this happened in April, that she took in September and October. She wasn't traumatized in September, October. I didn't ask for the money. I since donated it to the Broward Partnership and to Barbara Weinstein's group, because they have a soft spot in my heart. And there was a lot of people like that. And if you're a 9th grader and you were absent from school that day, you're getting free ACTs for the rest of your high school career. It doesn't seem right when people really need it. So what are your guys' thoughts on what some of the ways that we can, the fairness aspect of this? I know you kind of brought it up, and I believe that you're right, that people should all be treated equally, even within the school. Because I know in that school now there seems to be 2 tiers. There seems to be the A team and everybody else. And it shouldn't be like that. So I'm going to go to Mei Ling on that one, since she's a student.
So yes, when I heard that we were going to get free SAT, ACT, and extra stuff that they do charge, I was elated, because I will say I do not live in Parkland. I live in Coconut Creek, Florida. I'm actually on a reassignment. So I'm a part of a scholarship program that's based out of Pompano, because I know that when it's time for me to go to college, it's going to be a struggle when it comes to scholarships. So being able to take the ACT, that's for free.
So why isn't New Mexico State University Honors College saying to Mei Ling, who's extremely intelligent, who's extremely smart, that she should be going to New Mexico State Honors Scholarship, and they'll figure out a way to get her the scholarship money to do it? That's the thing I didn't understand about that when it came up. I mean, if that's politically incorrect to say, I say it anyway. And it's not that. It's exactly what you said, and I think that that's something that I think is being glossed over in this whole debate.
It's a painful thing to watch. Whether all the minorities are kind of not disappointed, but it's unfair treatment. Even in class with grades, leniency, whether you're activist or not. I will say this because, my teacher are more lenient than someone else that's sitting next to me who can't get, who needs to get their grades up and can't take work, because, it's a struggle. And I will say with the stuff, we had therapy dogs, we had free stuff thrown at us, we had everything.
A lot of clay. A lot of Play-Doh.
Play-Doh, coloring books.
And dogs and...
The dogs were fine. But everything else, I knew that I was...
There are so many school supplies in that upstairs of that library in the cabinets, they probably have school supplies for the entire Broward County sitting in those cabinets at Stoneman Douglas.
And we talk about it all the time. Can we please donate this to
Another school.
Ely? Can we donate it to Dillard? Can we donate it to Fort Lauderdale High School? But there's unresponsive. Oh, we can't do that. And so it's weird. It really is. We already had resources. The reason why I went to Stoneman Douglas is because Coconut Creek High School did not have the resources that I needed to have the education that I deserve. And that's because those resources are not going towards Coconut Creek High School, it's going towards Stoneman Douglas. And it's unfair.
So, bringing me to my next point, or what we can comment on. So when you drive by Stoneman Douglas down Pine Island Road,
It looks like Disney World. Like there's
well,
just
it
a
did-
bunch of posters.
Right. So, but if you go a mere 2 blocks past that, there's another school. It's an elementary school, but it doesn't really matter what grade it is because it's all school children. So you drive by Stoneman Douglas and you see Florida Highway Patrol, another Florida Highway Patrol, Guardian Angel, school security, 2 more Florida Highway Patrol, 2 BSO cars, et cetera, et cetera. A minimum of, it had to be 10 cars. And then you drive a mere 2 blocks later, it's a walk. Actually, some people use the same parking lot, even by the North Park, and they can go either way.
Cross the bridge.
And there's nobody in the next school. How is that even in the realm of fairness? And I know there were some students from other schools here. Your schools don't look like what Douglas looks like as far as security presence, as far as police presence. Want to comment on that?
Can I come?
Go ahead. You can.
Go ahead.
Why don't you comment on that?
Please
We'll-
let me.
we'll
So
give-
my
we'll
little
give
cousins
Maylene a
actually
break.
go to the elementary school, so
Okay.
And it's not only just that street. When you go in the neighborhood, it's at the you go to the pizza place. You have like every store in the plaza has MSD Strong on the window, and I feel like it's kind of traumatic because it's like it's re-traumatizing the people who are actually in the school, even though they're saying they're showing their support and solidarity. Like I said, it only goes so far. But it is true because there are other schools that are right there and there's nothing. But
Right.
I've drove past and seen the Florida Highway Patrol. They're double parked in front of every gate, and it's true. You're
2 of
wondering,
them. 2
but
cars
at the
in
end of the day,
2 cars at every gate. It's
let's
really
be honest.
it's amazing.
I genuinely don't think that it won't ever be MSD again. It won't. And especially but you don't have to keep the police officers outside because they can be doing something else. They could be policing the community. I think that it's, there's a lot of things that's just like, they're just trying to doctor it up, make everything look sexy. But I think that at the end of the day, a lot more needs to be like tangible solutions. They need to come forth. I think that just having them there, it's like a security measure for your mind. Like, oh, I feel safe. But and I know this, but for some of the students of color, their presence doesn't make them feel any safer. So
Right.
I think that over-policing some of the school, there is a fine line between school safety and over-policing, I think, especially when you look at the demographics of what makes up the school and what makes up the community of Parkland. Isn't that the only high school in that community?
Yeah. 100%.
So a lot of people have to go there, but it's just even how Maylene said, I'm not necessarily from that area, but it's just so when I leave and I go back home, it's like there's a privilege. And everybody can address the privilege, but just saying, I have the privilege, let me give it to another person, doesn't really change a thing because we all know that's not how privilege goes.
Yolanda, what do you think the media is overlooking in this whole response and the whole media response?
Well, I believe in teachable moments, and I think that the media is overlooking a teachable moment for the students of Parkland to join with other students to really make a change. So if I could be candid,
Absolutely.
when I
Is there any
saw
press
the-
in here, by the way, before?
Oh,
No, good. All right.
I'm a lobbyist. I don't care.
Right.
But when there was a unveiling of the tour, it was so like not reflective of the community. That's a teachable moment. You know, you have to learn, we have to figure out how to take our interests of Parkland with the interest of other students and teach people how to advocate and fish for the better good. It sounds like a socialist, but it's really not. It's kind of how America works. And if you want to talk about the great fabric of this country, it's when we've been able to make teachable moments and use them to change history. And I think that's what the media is missing.
Right. So President Armstrong just mentioned something that leads me to my next question.
Yes.
Social media. How do we think social media, I mean, we all see the role that it has. How many Twitter followers do you have, May?
I don't have a Twitter.
Oh, you don't have Twitter?
It's very negative. That's why I don't have one.
You went off Twitter. You used to be on Twitter.
Nope.
No,
No,
she's never
wasn't
been
you?
on Twitter.
No,
I thought
not
I
me.
followed you. Okay. All right. So what about social media in this whole, in this era and with this movement? Because that's really where we're seeing a lot of the advocacy, and even what you could say bullying, let's call it bullying on social media. What do we think about the social media aspect of this? And
I've been told I could be lynched for infringing on people's amendments just off of tweeting. So I think that it depends because, and I think it's interesting you asked how many followers. I've been like an activist, you know, like before what happened to me. A month before what happened to me because it happened to Trayvon Martin, so I started then. And I've been very active on social media. On Twitter, I have 526, maybe 600 followers, but let me say, if I tweet something and I text Emma and then Emma retweets it, I get like
boom, I know.
700, and I'm like,
Right.
you know, so I've learned how to bridge the gap. And I've said, hey, well, I need them to know that this is going on in Little Haiti. Can you repost this or can you tweet this? Because that's what social media does. It can connect you, and it's a powerful tool. But its power can, you know, it should be taken, you know, with caution. Because the same way, for example, like we said, David Hogg is out there on Twitter, but it's to the point where, like, one tweet you can basically end someone's career.
I have seen careers ended.
In one tweet.
I know people personally whose careers have been ended with this Marjorie Stoneman Douglas
Yes.
incident.
And I think it's ridiculous because, to a certain extent, like, yes, there's awareness, but at the same time, there's livelihood. Like, and I think a lot of this is about resources. The whole problem is resources to begin with. So I feel like, if anything, and I mean, I've said it several times, and you're right, it's a plane ticket. It's a lot of it is just, I'm wondering if you're doing it for the likes, you're doing it for the reposts and the retweets. Because I'd be honest, sometimes I don't have time to tweet the stuff that I'm really doing in the community because I'm in the community.
Exactly.
I'm
Right.
like, I'm with the kids, and you know, kids, you got games on your phone, so
Right.
like, I mean, so if I'm with the kids, I don't have time to tweet, I don't have time to post. I think the first time that I actually posted something very real in terms of gun violence after the Parkland thing, just to see what would happen, was when the 4-year-old girl was killed in Liberty Square. And I was over there, and I was with the community, and I'm looking at 6-year-olds and 5-year-olds mourning the loss of a 4-year-old and asking questions. That is reality. That is what the media is actually missing. The reality. They're out of touch, and they think that just running a story because, you know, it's popping or it's going on, get hits, that's going to do it. But you have to dig deep and do the things that aren't going to get hits, the things that are going to actually hit home for some people, because those are the stories that need to be shared, as you said. I think that social media is powerful, and social media has the capability to do what some journalists can't do in terms of getting the story out there. But it could be a dangerous thing. And
Yep.
there are also people out there who are bullies. You have some of those bots that are on there, and you're just like, who are you? You know?
Right.
So I think it really depends.
Well, I have more followers than they do.
You have a lot of followers.
I have a lot of followers.
I got followers on Instagram.
So,
Yeah.
I guess I would say as a person who is introduced to social media by my daughter, it's a powerful tool beyond this arena. I think every elected official is on social media, and I think that has been impacted a lot by the message that's gotten out, and I think it will continue to be. And the perception is that young people are tweeting every day when we find out that really they're grown-ups that tweet in the middle of the night.
I know. Yeah,
And run countries.
right. Yeah, we tweet. We're tweeters. So it's interesting because, as an elected official, and I know Chip will say the same thing because he's active on social media. Yeah, he want to add on there. Usually we're inundated if something happens, and it gets to a point where when you're in the community, if there's a police siren that's going down the street in Parkland, I'll usually get, what's going on? And it gets a little bit nuts. I mean, and we saw that yesterday in Parkland. There was a prank on David Hogg's house that turned into an entire city being shut down. The entire city was shut down in Parkland for an hour yesterday for a prank with all the related resources that goes with that. How do you suppose, and we don't have that much more time, so I'm going to kind of close it with this, and I'm going to start with Mei Ling. How do you suppose these high school students had the wherewithal to build this movement and because they've come out of the box like a Fortune 500 company. So I'm sure that you have an opinion on that.
Yes.
Speak into the microphone so everybody can hear you.
I till this day don't understand how Emma Gonzalez, Cameron Kasky, David Hogg were able to the next day be out there. Till this day, I don't know how that was even humanly possible. Those who were in the building took 3 weeks.
Right.
Because it's trauma. But when
That's also a 100%
Yes.
factual statement. I know people who when they were having the marches in Tallahassee a few weeks later, I know students who still hadn't spoken a word almost to their family, that were hiding under beds in their houses, and there were other students that were taking bus trips to Tallahassee.
It's trauma. I still have to hear gunshots and screaming in my bed. And, I was watching on the news like, wow, this is still on TV. Wow. So when I started talking, it was just out of anger because they were still on TV. And when in Black communities, they're only there trending topic for one day. If even. But the anger with hope makes the fire in us, and Stoneman Douglas students, and that's the anger that we have when we have to go to class and miss a friend that was sitting right next to us. And that's what keeps us fighting every single day, is the fact that we can no longer ask this person to slide the answers, or we
Okay, okay, this is good, because do you have a professional media consultant working with you?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
I'm just checking because,
There's my mother.
okay, and she's excellent. She's excellent. She's your momager.
She's my momager.
Because I've heard that
Oh,
word.
that's my momager.
I've heard that word in Parkland quite often lately. Some of these students have momagers. That's the person that gets them set so that they can fly to LA for the music awards and sets the trips up to
That
the
answers
can.
your question, though.
What?
You said how were they able to do it? A lot of them
Right.
they had their parents, their resources. They were able to get PR firms on board. They were able to get, the permits needed to do the walk and all that stuff. We tried that in Northwestern. Y'all saw what happened on the news.
So I know I only have like a minute and a half. So why different between this and what just happened in Texas? It can't just be because Prince Harry's wedding was the next day and we didn't see anything else in the news. Why the difference?
It's an open carry state.
So it's just around the gun issue, and that's why we're not hearing from any of the students really in Texas.
They said they don't want to. They had some of the students. Well, I'm on Twitter, so that's a lot of them that were there. They were tweeting about how they don't want to be like Parkland. They don't want to have a big movement like the Never Again movement. They want to just grieve and deal with what they're dealing with, and they do want legislative things passed, so they'll work on that. But in the background, because it's not just a mainstream media thing, it's reality. They did come out and say that.
Okay.
And I'm with them on that, because health. It's all up here. It really is. We're just balancing it. And plus, with Stoneman Douglas is a little different issue from the rest of the school shootings because it was a separate building compared to a whole school. When all these other shootings were like one school, one building. So you see the different types of grieving and different types of trauma when one building is traumatized. They went through it, they heard it, while others did not hear it. Some people were all over here, and it just affected 600 students.
Do I have
out
to?
of 3,000.
I have to stop? Oh, Q&A, okay. I really don't want to stop. This is so good. I mean, at least I think it is, but Jack, Mayor Seiler.
Let's start with the first question, Yolanda, let me just ask you, as someone that's been through this, you're sitting next to two very bright, energetic young people. We talk about does your voice count, can it be sustainable? What advice would you give those two so that this movement goes beyond this year, this month, this day? What would you tell them as someone that's been through this?
So I work with a group of women called the Mothers of Murdered Children in Miami, and they just decided that they wanted to change the law as it relates to witness protection. And they came up to Tallahassee. They found a sponsor, somebody who would listen. That's all a sponsor is. It's somebody that would listen. And they, for 2 years, came to Tallahassee and testified and told their story and got more people to support them and then got the governor to support them, and it is now law. So I would tell these young ladies that if there's things that they'd like to change them. You write your bill, get you a sponsor, which is just somebody who will listen, because somebody will, maybe Chip will do it, and just take it and make it happen. You have to believe that it will happen. You have to not understand the word no. If anybody asks you anything about me and say, I don't understand no, what do you mean no? So you have to have that attitude, and it'll get done. It'll get done.
Next question. I someone in the back by the microphone.
Hi. By way of introduction, I've worked with both Mei Ling and Megan on the, how you doing, Megan? Hey. How you doing, Mei Ling? On the Gun Violence Task Force for the 23rd Congressional District. My name is Dr. Thomas Brzezinski, and I'm an exclusive member of a club. Unfortunately, I'm a gun violence researcher expert, one of 50 in the United States. And while we were eating dinner tonight, people, I can tell you right now that 50 people lost their lives to gun violence. This is not a political issue, this is a health issue. And I can tell you right now that from my research, that these people lost their lives because they were poor, because they were black, and because they were brown. And it's happening all over the country. My question to the panel is, I'm a college professor, and I talk about this all the time in my classes, and I talk about my research, which proves this. How can we get more people in the university community across the country talking about this issue honestly instead of sweeping it under the rug in our areas of higher education?
I think that the way to do it is well, it's hard because some people are truly desensitized. They try their best to stay as far from the issue as they can. And for those people, unfortunately, it's like they're not going to be able to change that until it hits kind of closer to home for them. And in some of our, but for some of the college kids, it's so much on the TV now, like for the past 3.5 months, and all that stuff, that I think that's also pushing them to not want to talk about it. It's just like, I'd rather talk about something else. I think that we do have to just stop with the played out and the tired rhetoric, and then just get people to really think about the fact that, bullets don't have eyes. It could be me, it could be you. It could be you once, it could be me twice. So I think that it comes with us really letting people know that, you need to wake up. And you can't wake some people up sometimes. That's the only thing. You can't wake everybody up.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Joanne Isaac. I work with students throughout Broward County, and I work with hundreds of minority students. I also deal with the National Achiever Society, which is some of the brightest students in Broward County in minority zip codes. I don't have a problem with the benefits of what Parkland received They were traumatized. If I had children, one got hurt, that one would get a little more than the others. So I don't really have a problem with that. I also like the model. The model worked for them, and I kind of feel we should emulate that model. So let's take the model of what's working. Let's hit the politicians, our minorities. I love the marching, but I know, and I travel throughout the US and throughout the world, including South Africa with my children, and marching was always done with an agenda. It wasn't just done to march. And marching wasn't done to break up your community. Marching was a systematic thing that you did with an agenda of what you want to accomplish. And that's what I would say is hurting in our communities. Our group, we have a Project Ready group and a Voices group, and it's advocacy that we're looking for. Our kids are not coming out to vote, but they're coming to the parties, and they're going to the dances, and they're going to everything else. And the idea is to get our communities to impact our leaders where it's going to hurt. We went to the March for Our Lives rally, and honestly, they were well represented in terms of having so many communities come out and speak. And we had over 50-something students on a bus, and we stayed the entire weekend meeting with community leaders as well. So my question to you is, how do we get our students, our communities, to see a model is working and ride that wind to get what we want out of it?
So if I could take that one, I know that the Never Again, some of the kids and students involved in the Never Again movement, I've spoken to them at length on that specific issue, and they're very tactical in what they're doing as far as, you know, when they started setting up and going to these different events, because they've been all over the place. They have been, you know, synagogues in New Jersey, churches in Detroit, they're everywhere, but they're part of what they're doing when they're going is they're going with voters registration information there. That's a key component of everything they're doing. They're researching which congressional districts are the ones that they can make a difference. They're doing the research before they go to these and set up these bus tours and where they're going to try and strategically determine where the best spot it is, because I agree, the key to this is going to be getting people out to vote in the future. And if you went into Matt Deitch's or Cameron Caskey's living room over the past few months, I mean, there were whiteboards all over the wall until they, you know, moved some of that stuff around. This was run like a political organization, you know, to get things going. And when I was in Tallahassee with the first group of students right after, I went up and drove up with them. They were actually sitting in legislators' offices, you know, 10, 12 of them. It was set up and they went from office to office. And one of them had a computer and was actually researching the numbers in each of the different offices, and they had it broken down by precincts. It was pretty sophisticated stuff for 16 and 17-year-old high school students, you know, to come forward with that kind of strategy and way to make things happen. But I think that we need to see, to keep the movement going, we need to keep it about the movement and keep it about registering people to vote, what the reasons they're doing it for, and get a little bit away from the carnival atmosphere type of, you know, just here to hawk a t-shirt. People are getting a little bit turned off by that at this point. You can't walk into certain places now. You know, there's this t-shirt guy, this person selling a bracelet, this person selling this. It's all going somewhere. No one really knows where it's going, and it's becoming a big concern for a lot of the people on the ground. Other questions? Okay. Seeing none. Oh, there's somebody.
Does the youth have any questions?
Yeah, any of the students too. If you guys have any questions, we want to hear from you.
Please.
Stephanie, just because you're wearing a t-shirt, you're not a student anymore. Just because you have your MSD t-shirt.
Good evening. Ted Victor, public school teacher at MacArthur High School, and also the owner of a social media company and a mentoring company. I see a large disconnect between the real world and the classroom. Is it possible we can kind of formalize this process of engaging the youth, bringing what's happening in the real world into the classroom, possibly having more of an aggressive community involvement for credit in order to graduate because a lot of students are disengaged. And as a result, they're not necessarily going to think about voting. And I would like to actually have the possibility of having elected officials and school board members come together, have a conversation. Maybe we need to rewrite the curriculum. Maybe we need to reevaluate how we're educating our young people because the space between the boardrooms and the classroom is way too wide.
Good point. Anybody want to comment on that?
No, I agree.
Well,
I think, yeah, the curriculum needs to be done at this point.
most definitely. I was actually just talking to my U.S. history teacher just last week about maybe African American history should be in a school requirement instead of just something that you would pick. And because there is a disconnect with the real world and the classroom, and then you just go through with the Algebra 2, you go through with what else? The English, and do you really know about African American history, bias training, all civics, all of those things. Like civics is no longer a requirement anymore, which is weird when we need it, and it's the only thing that really can affect us. So
Sounds like she has a bill for next year.
Yeah, and a lot of the students that are out there making a lot of the noise, they're not the straight A, top class students. These are drama students that get their thing from the extracurricular, because Douglas High School, like all the other, you can take like 5 AP classes and get a 6.0, whatever it is. Those aren't all those, you're seeing more of the liberal art, balanced students that are advocating. They're not really political science junkies. They're just normal kids with well-rounded education. So bringing the different liberal arts and the different subtopics that should really be more of a focus in our school. The civics, the African American history, the drama, the DECA should be, the business, all that just adds so much more. And they have robust programs at Douglas, but they need to do that at all the schools so that all the students have that same opportunity.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Cindy.
Cindy Amber, Children's Services Council.
And you live 2 miles from the school.
I live 2 miles from the school, and I had the pleasure of hearing these young ladies before, and they inspired me, and it was one of the reasons I wanted them here today. Because the topic of making your voice heard, one of the things that frustrates me is a lack of civic engagement and a lack of our young people really understanding that their voice can be heard and it can matter. And I find these young ladies very inspiring, and I'm sure I would feel the same about the others who felt the need to come out tonight, because it shows that you are wanting to be engaged in your community. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about what inspired, why did you wake up? Because I know you were both involved, mainly before this tragedy happened at the school. You were woke to civic engagement. And so, why? And how can we tap it? What can we do as adults to help light that fire in other young people?
I know that, well, it pretty much started in middle school. With Trayvon Martin, I was pretty, what was that, 12? I was like 11. And I remember we were upset. I went to a very diverse middle school, which was Sawgrass Springs Middle School in Coral Springs. And, we were upset. We had on hoodies. We all brought Skittles and Arizona to school. It was our own little protest. Then I got picked up and put into Westlades, which is right next to Stoneman Douglas, for finishing my last semester, and it was a huge culture shock. And that's when I heard just pure ignorance. It wasn't like they were racist, but you could call ignorance racist sometimes, with comments like, "Oh my God, you're so smart," or I had on a red hoodie. They were like, "Red Riding Hood in the hood," stuff like that I heard, and that's when I was like, you know what, I can't take this anymore, and I was, that's when I had to bring all the, whether a boy got shot by a police officer. I was on it. I talked about it in school. I was already woke. Then I've done the marching for all of these Brown to Trayvon Martin, and then now I'm marching for my own school. And it's honestly, I was in my bed and I got up and I was trying to celebrate a birthday after the shooting. And my mother tried to be like, "Maylin, you should get out there." I'm just like, I am in grief. And then she's like, she was like, "You put me in my place. I forgot, I tend to forget that it's not that easy." But then I realized, if I can't sit back and watch none of the Black population being represented and say, why aren't they being represented if I'm not going to do something myself? So it's just, it's just me realizing I can't expect someone to do something for me. I have to do it my own. I have to do it by myself.
For me, I was in high school. I did also walk out in March following the February shooting of Trayvon Martin because he was my friend's cousin. And I actually made a jacket, a black hoodie. We walked out to school. They wouldn't let us, but we pushed the gate anyway. And I had a black hoodie that says, "Do I look suspicious?" And under it says, "Trayvon Martin did. Go to change.org and sign the petition to prosecute George Zimmerman." And I walked out of school with my my Arizona and my Skittles too, and it was hot, and we walked to the flea market, and even that, I learned that day how police and how the school treats you differently, because the police told us, like, get home. We were barely allowed to leave school, but my friend also had a jacket on that says, "Am I next?" We made them together. The following month, I was shot. So for me, it wasn't a matter of what got you started. It was, I have no choice because the time is now for me. And then I realized that as I went to these panels, the voice that was missing was mine, a survivor voice, a survivor who knows what it's like to be in the hospital fighting for your life. The one who you fight today when you survive, but it's a fight every day after that. That's why I continue to do it. That's why I inspire everybody else, because yes, the answer is your voice does count. The thing is, we need to know that we keep saying, see something, say something. We keep saying, speak up. We keep saying, do things. We need to learn that we also need to listen. Because if you feel like you're unheard, then why are you speaking? And I think that that's what's going on. But I'm the one that, if anything, I'll be the ear. I'll be the ear and the mouth. I'll listen to you, and I'll go and say for you what you can't say for yourself. And I feel like that's what everyone needs to do. If they want to, instead of saying, what can I do, do that. Be the change, be the voice, be that person. You have to do something you never want to do if you want to be something you've never been,
It's when you walked out, when she walked out of, yeah, when you walked out, and they didn't want you to walk out,
Nope.
and the police didn't want you to
Nope,
walk out.
they scolded us.
Compare that to these walkouts where
And
the
they
police
told us that
are
we'd
handing
be
bottled water
suspended.
to the people. It's a different response, and I think we need to examine why that response is different, because it really says a lot. And with that, I am getting the hook, and I think we're done.
Wow.
Awesome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We have a token of appreciation for all of our panelists, so Nicole's going to be passing those out. We hope that you enjoyed our season. We're going into our 5th year next year, so we're incredibly excited and hope that you will consider joining us, not only in our 5th season, but becoming a member and help spreading the word in the community about the type of programming that we're trying to do. Have a great evening, and thank you so much again for all of your insights.
Thank you.
Awesome. I was so nervous.
It's okay. You did good.